What's good, everybody? Gamer Critic back with another Why I'm Buying. Yeah, I know, but what can I say? There's a lot of good games coming out. And today, we are talking about the big one. Today, we are talking about Resident Evil Requiem. So Resident Evil Requiem is the next mainline entry in the famous Resident Evil series being developed and published by Capcom. It releases next week on February 27th, 2026 for the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X and S, PC and Windows, and the Nintendo Switch. So let's be honest here, instead of why I'm buying, this should really be why aren't you buying Resident Evil Requiem? Because let's be honest with ourselves here, everyone and their mother is buying Resident Evil Requiem. And when you look at everything being offered here, can you really say that you blame them? This is easily one of the single most anticipated games of the entire year. Now, mind you, I am also one of the people that really became a fan of Resident Evil during its modern stages. I played some Resident Evil games before the modern games. I played the original RE remake. That was a great one. I played Resident Evil Revelations. And I think I made it halfway through the first Resident Evil 4, like the OG Resident Evil. But it wasn't until Resident Evil 7 Biohazard is when, like many other people, I really started getting into Resident Evil. I mean, kudos to Resident Evil 7. That game put Resident Evil and Capcom as a whole back on the market. And ever since then, it's just been banger after banger after banger. And what makes Requiem so special is that it looks like it's taking all the lessons that they had gathered from all those past games and putting them into this one. It looks like it's gonna be the best of both worlds in a way that we haven't seen done in Resident Evil before. The story of Resident Evil Requiem is still relatively hush-hush, which is very exciting, because despite all the trailers that we've seen so far, we really don't know what's going on with this story. We know the story is focused on FBI intelligence analysis, aka newcomer Grace Ashcroft, who returns to a mysterious abandoned location in Raccoon City to investigate a string of deaths that include the site tied to her mother's death years ago. The story also focuses on another protagonist, the GOAT Leon S. Kennedy, who returns to Raccoon City for relatively unknown reasons that are still severely kept under wraps. But predictions are going around that Leon is infected again and he's returning to Raccoon City to try and find a cure. Of course, things are going to get crazier and deeper outside of that, but that's about the gist of it. You got newcomer Grace Ashcroft and veteran Leon S. Kennedy. What makes this story particularly really interesting is that unlike Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8, that were relatively isolated stories in the grand Resident Evil lore, Resident Evil 9 seems to be calling back to a lot of old stuff. From bringing back Leon, to having this set in Raccoon City, to the fact that Grace Ashcroft is like the daughter of a really obscure Resident Evil character from a game that before this game I haven't even heard of, called Resident Evil Outbreak. And mind you, this is all the stuff that we know, that we've seen in the trailers. The developers themselves are still hinting at the fact that we don't know a lot of what's going on in this story. And given everything that we've already seen in the trailers, it's very clear that this is going to be a more connected game to the rest of the Resident Evil lore. Even just by itself, I really like Grace Ashcroft as a character. I mean, okay, don't get me wrong, Leon is the GOAT, but I really love a good hero story. I love the story of someone finding their strength. That sounds like what we're gonna get with Grace Ashcroft. We don't get many characters like Grace Ashcroft in Resident Evil very often. Everybody, all the GOATs are certified badasses, and they're cool, but it's really interesting to see something like this from Grace Ashcroft's perspective. Somebody that is not a soldier, but just a regular person stuck in a really shitty situation, clearly terrified out of their mind, and rightfully so. Not like fucking Ethan Winters, who's a regular guy, but just kind of shrugs all this shit off. No, Grace is terrified. You can see it in the very detailed animations that they have for her. The way that she'll trip herself as she's running away, the way her hands are shaking when pointing down sights of these monsters. It's one thing to be a certified badass and to take these zombies down. That is really cool. But it's another thing to be completely out of your element and terrified, but still pushing forward anyway. And I think that's why I think Grace Ashcroft could be, if done well, a very engaging character alongside the already amazing Leon S. Kennedy. I'm not going to say much about him. It's fucking Leon S. Kennedy. We're all excited to see him. We're all excited to play as him. I just can't wait to see what they do with him and his character in Resident Evil 9. They're clearly playing up the trauma of Raccoon City. The developers even said that this game is going to push Leon to his physical and mental limit. And for someone like Leon S. Kennedy, who has been kicking Biohazard ass for years now, that really makes you wonder what type of stuff are they really gonna put my man through. I don't know, but I'm excited to see. But while we're all very excited for the story, of course we all are, let's not kid ourselves. We're coming for the gameplay. I myself am coming for the gameplay. Resident Evil has one of the most addictive gameplay loops in a game ever. Being stuck in these freaking labyrinthine mansions or towns or village or cities and having to explore the area to unlock new areas while killing a bunch of zombies along the way. It is the perfect mixture of badass combat, terrifying horror, and super addictive puzzle solving. And everything that we have seen in Resident Evil Requiem, it looks like they are taking all the lessons that they learned from all the modern RE games, which just happen to be all the RE games that I love, and merge them together into something that feels fresh and new. And I've been talking around it this whole time, so I'll just jump right in. The fact that there are basically two different styles of game in this game is amazing. Grace Ashcroft, being the newcomer, is going to play up the pure survival horror side of the game. The side that we've seen from Resident Evil 7 and RE8. Like, Grace's sections are more focused on stealth. You can still kill enemies. You get a gun given to you by Leon called Requiem, the heavy-hitting pistol that does a crap ton of damage. You also get another pistol later in the game, and you also get these vials of blood that she collects from the zombies, which she can use to her advantage to make the zombies explode. But at the end of the day, stealth is her biggest lifesaver. She isn't supposed to be a tank like my man Leon here, who gets a bunch of guns and a fucking hatchet and can wield a goddamn chainsaw. And that's just, yes, it is a really interesting dual protagonist thing that Capcom has going on here. A perfect emotional contrast from the dread and vulnerability of Grace and the adrenaline and control of Leon. And the fact that they managed to blend those together so well, at least from what we've seen in the trailers, it really is impressive. But that's not the only significant thing that they added. They added perspective changes. You can switch from first person to third person whenever you damn well please. Now, admittedly, the game defaults for Grace as first person and Leon as third person, which I'll probably play the game in that way as well. But still, the fact that you have the choice, the fact that after I finish the first run, I can go back and play Grace in the third person and Leon in the first person is still really cool. And then outside of the gameplay, you gotta give credit to the design of everything. The game is still running on RE Engine, and typical for the RE Engine, these environments look amazing. The detail of these hospitals and the lighting in the area, especially now since it's running on new gen hardware. And mind you, like we said, just because we haven't seen them, that doesn't mean we're not gonna be going to other places. And the last two trailers that we've seen have made it very clear that this game is not just going to be set in this hospital. And if these places look as good as this hospital did in the opening section, I think we're going to be in for just an absolute looker of a game. But it's not just the design of the map. I'm talking about the design of the characters, particularly the zombies. They're kind of going more along the lines of RE4, where they're still cognitive to an extent. They still have speech and vocalization traits to make it clear that these were once human. You got some zombies that will actually retain some of the human trait that they had while they were alive. Well, you'll have a zombie flicking a light on and off over and over again. You'll have a cleaning lady zombie drastically trying to clean blood off of a mirror. Or, my personal favorite, you'll have these weird, creepy looking singing zombies that will continue to sing their song even while they're infected. It's such a cool design and it's so freaking creepy, but I love it. And of course, we're gonna have the mutated infected too. We've already seen 3. We've seen the one that Grace faces in the opening, that really tall, bug-eyed lady. We saw this big mutant named Chunk that is so big he takes up entire hallways. And then we saw this lumbering cook-like zombie. The design of these zombies and the bosses themselves is just something that gets me really excited. But like I said, even with those, it's just really fascinating to see how this difference of gameplay between the two is really gonna make things feel so fresh. I love that on your first run, as you play as Grace, your biggest thing is avoiding all the zombies I just said. But by the time you get to Leon, all the zombies that Grace has left behind, you'll be able to mow down with brutal and bloody efficiency. That balance of action and horror, it has me more excited than anything else in this game. Everything that we've seen, especially on the gameplay front of Resident Evil Requiem, it just looks like a genuine evolution of what modern Resident Evil can be and should be. And between the story and lore, the visuals, and especially this perfect blending of horror and action gameplay, I am just ready to get my hands on this game, as are many other people, I am sure. And thankfully, we do not need to wait too much longer when this game finally launches on February 27th. And that's why I'm buying Resident Evil Requiem. Thank you guys so much for watching. My next video, no more why I'm buyings, at least for a little while. There's no new game coming out until like mid-March that I'm particularly excited for. So expect some reviews coming out either next week or the week after. I'll keep you guys posted. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. It helps a ton. If you want to stay up to date with what I'm doing, you can follow me on Instagram. That's @TheGamerCritic. Be good people, and I will talk to all of you very soon. All right, peace.